And we've talked together about bringing some of my family and our family together and having some discussions because families heal. That's the beauty, and I'd like to show that families get together after we go through all these battles, and how the family all works together and works on themselves to get to the place where we can really have a pretty sane family. I mean, some of us are pretty together. There's a couple that are a little suspect, but I'd like to get some of the family members or some of my kids together and do an episode where we can talk about how successful it's been, throughout the years to be able to accomplish the things that we've been able to accomplish as a family. And that's the beauty of this thing, man. There's another side to all of this craziness. There's a whole part of this where you can enjoy life and you can enjoy family again, and you can be, you can participate in watching your grandkids grow up and see your kids and spend time with them. And it's such a gift that, I'm so grateful that I did the work that I needed to do to have that family back. And because they wouldn't be here today. None of us would if I would have kept on that path, for sure.
Hello, everyone. This is Jonathan and Brent again. We're here talking about pushing each other to the top. This is another episode, and Brent is still in. Where are you now? Are you still there?
Phuket, Thailand.
Yeah, Thailand. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How you been over there? How's it going?
Oh, man, it's great. Fabulous. The weather's been good lately. It's been hot and muggy, but go to the beach every day. It's a rough life.
Rough, but someone's got to do it, I guess.
That's right. That's what retirement's all about, right?
Oh, tough duty there.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, what do you want?
What time is it? What time is it today? Time is it? Where you at?
Yeah, I'm in Arizona. It's 7:14 in the evening.
Yeah, and it's 9:15 here in Friday morning. So
nice.
Yeah, it's about 14 hours. Something like that.
That's so cool that this time lines up so we can still keep doing these recordings.
Yeah. Well, let's. I want to get started today with I've shared a lot of my story and some of my struggles and some of my successes and the things that I've been so fortunate, so lucky to be able to put together a lot of years of sobriety. I've gone through a lot of struggles, a lot of life comes at you whether you're sober or not. As 36 years of sobriety, you get to experience a lot. You go through, a lot of, like I said, successes and a lot of pain. And, you get people that pass away and you friends that die, and you just go through, what life dishes out to you. And one thing about Alcoholics Anonymous, and I talk about this throughout the podcast, is being able to pick up those tools and put them to use. It's so important that when I find myself in a situation where I just don't have any answers. I mean, I don't have the answers, and I can't just snap my fingers and make myself feel better. I know it's time once again to just turn over what I have to a power greater than myself and rely on that power to take care of me, to walk me through that pain and success is almost as dangerous as pain. I think when you come into the program, we don't have a lot of successes. Any time that I won a big, account at work, if I nailed down a big project or whatever, and brought it home to the company, man, I wanted to go out and party, man. I really looked for that pat on the back and like, whoa, man, this is, and I had to learn along the way that it's not all about that. It's you gotta try to strive for that balance, and that's that way for everything. It's I've always had this passion, and I've talked to you about this of helping other people, and not just alcoholics, but you know, I mean, how many people, for every one alcoholic out there, they've got a family of at least five or six close relatives, at least, if not more. And you think about those five and six people that are out there not having a clue what to do with that loved one, and I just think that there's not a whole lot of research. There's some books out there that I read along the way, because I consider myself, I grew up in an alcoholic home, so I've been battling this thing ever since I took my first breath of air. I've lived on the side of the insanity and the uncertainty and not knowing what was going to happen the next second, just always walking on eggshells, and just I remember when I was a little kid, it was like somebody sent out a memo with a new rule. My dad loved to make new rules, like at the table. The kitchen table was a place where there was strict rules, and I sat right on the right of him. So if I messed up, man, I got clobbered, knocked right off my chair. I remember one of his crazy rules was if you had to go to the restroom during dinner, you took your plate with you. You didn't come back. And it's just like, what was that? And it was like everybody in the family knew that rule except for me. It was just like nobody ever told me these rules. So I was always feeling like I didn't quite get what was going on in the family. I was always felt like I was always trying to catch up. What's dad's new rule for the day, and the insanity of that. So I understand the insanity of living under the roof of a alcoholic. But as my life went on from that point and I became that alcoholic, I know that I was like, I often talk about this tornado. I was a tornado in people's lives. And man, I destroyed everything in my path. I turned everything upside down, super selfish and self-centered and angry and, strict and just a monster, and now I often talk about in recovery, it's the same thing. It's still a tornado, but it's a white tornado that puts out, hopefully hope and success and, honesty and reality. And it's more based on some, really good, vital, of good, well, what am I looking for? I'm looking for a good foundation that we build a relationship with. And, it's taken a lot of work and a lot of time to be able to do that. And, today, I think about those people out there that are suffering and what would I do in a situation if I had a family member and I didn't know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous? Where would I reach out? What would I do to, find help? Because I'm here to tell you, doing it on your own is not going to work. It's just almost impossible to be able to deal. You're up against a big monster. Alcoholism, addiction is so big and powerful and, crazy. And the funny thing is when I talk to a lot of people, because I worked in treatment centers and I worked with families and I did intake and I used to work with families quite often and I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, I can tell you stories. One time I got a phone call to go help a family and they were up in Farmington, Utah. And I got a call. This family called me, a good LDS family. They didn't have one clue about drugs. I mean, they didn't, that stuff never even crossed their mind. They were the most innocent. I mean, people, just this young couple had a lot of kids and their oldest daughter, she was about 16 or 17 years old. They called me up and she's hooked on heroin.
Oh my.
And I'm like, now what? She's 16, 17 years old, Farmington, Utah, and she's on heroin. Okay. So anyway, I get in the car and I drive up there and I sit down with the family and I talk to mom and dad and they tell me, Brent, we don't even we didn't even know the word heroin existed a week ago. We have no idea what the drug does. We have no idea what we're up against. We just need some help. And I just felt so bad for these people, and I says, well, bring your daughter in. Let's sit down and we'll talk to her. And she comes in, and this kid looks like the most innocent girl you've ever seen in your life. I mean, she just looked so fragile, so innocent. And she comes in, and I said, so tell me what your history. And their parents are sitting there, Of course, parents are there, and she don't want to talk.
Mhm.
And so I can see that the walls are coming up and she's really not opening up to me and everything. So I asked the parents, I said, do me a favor. I'm going to take your daughter. We're going to go out in the backyard. We're going to go sit on those lawn chairs out there and we're going to have a discussion. And we're going to find out where she's at and what we can do to help her. And I took her outside and we sat down and I says, okay, give me your drug history. She says, well, I don't have a drug history. I said, what do you mean you don't have a drug history? Do you drink? No, don't drink. You smoke pot? No, never smoke pot. And you're on heroin. Yeah, I'm on heroin. I said,
Right behind. Yeah.
how does that happen? I said, how do you go from 0 to 1,000, nothing in between? I mean, this girl went straight to heroin. She said, well, there was a whole bunch of us. She said, there was about 12 of us that all hung out together. We went to a party. We're having a good time. This friend showed up and he had heroin and he talked us all into giving it a try. Says, I don't know why we all did it, but every one of us decided that we would try it. She goes, we started by snorting it, I think she said, or smoking it, one or the other. And she said, we loved it. It was great. We really enjoyed it. And we started doing it on a regular basis. And I said, okay, well, how much are you using? And she says, well, I'm using about, I think she said a bag a day or a balloon a day, which was equivalent to about $100. Maybe not quite that much. I can't remember exactly what the price, but it was pretty expensive for a young girl. If you're doing that every day, maybe it was a $10 or $15 bag, but she's doing it every day. And I said, well, how are you paying for this? Oh, well, he doesn't charge me. Okay, he doesn't charge you. I said, now you're lying to me because he's charging you. And you might not want to tell me what he's charging you, but I'm not stupid. I know that you're paying the price to use that. She didn't want to really go into it, and I understood what she was saying. So here's this guy, goes to all these young people. He distributes all this heroin to them, gets every one of them addicted over about a 1-month period. These kids have never done any other drugs. And she is just like blown away because she says, I can't quit doing it because as soon as I quit doing it, I get sick. So anyway, getting through this story, this little girl and all of her friends started calling me. What happened was their dealer got busted and their supply was cut off. So now you've got these 12 kids in Farmington, Utah, cannot get their stuff. They're all sick as heck and they don't know what to do. And they're all calling me saying, you need to help us, and their parents are freaking out and everybody's talking to everybody. So I got this little girl into treatment and got her on the path. And then I worked with their parents a little bit. But this is just, I can't imagine. Every time I think about the family, I think about that couple. I mean, they were so young and just so blown away, and they did the right thing. They reached out and asked for help, and I was able to help that little girl, and we got her in treatment. She did really, really good in treatment. She was very successful, and she got out of treatment, and she had this boyfriend that was, of course, hooked as well, and he kept wanting to contact her, and so I talked to her just before she got out of treatment, and I asked her what her aspirations were, what she wanted to do when she got out. She goes, I really want to go back to school. Like, she dropped out of school and she says, I want to go to college. I'd like to go to California and go to colleges. It's all there for you, girl. It's all possible. Anyway, she got out of treatment. She went to California. She started going down that path of going to school. And her boyfriend followed her, caught her, and guess what? Within weeks, they both overdosed and were almost dead in the hospital.
Oh my God.
You know? Now, I lost contact with her after that. I just know that she survived that relapse. I don't know what happened to her from that point on.
Mhm.
But that's, I share that story because the power of this disease, when a family's up against this, what do you do? Where do you turn? If you don't know anything about this stuff, and I said, you got to ask for help. Help is so vitally important. And there's books out there, Codependent No More by Melanie Beattie is a good resource. That book's been around for ever and ever and ever. I've read it several times. It's a pretty good resource. And I know that there's more books out there that I have not read that are good codependent kind of books. And I think that that's available to people. I think that's a good place to start and try to get an understanding. I think the funny thing is with the family, the denial about their disease, and trust me when I tell you this, it's not about the alcoholic. If you've got a family member and stuff, you're as addicted to them as they are to drugs. Hmm. Now, for whatever reason, family members have a very, very hard time thinking that they play any part in this whatsoever. And I'm here to tell you that this is a family disease, and no matter how you handle it, you play a part in it. Hmm. Now, it's just nature to take care of your kids. It's just nature to be able to, try to help them along the way. Whether it's, a lot of people will come to me, well, I don't give them any money. Well, it's not all about money. It's about that mental, the psychological stuff that goes on, that relationship that you have between the person that's using, and it's the denial is so thick that a lot of people just can't see it. But I'm here to tell you, it's there, and you can choose, just like the alcoholic has to, you can choose whether you're going to take responsibility for this or not,
And do families have sessions together? Like, how do they work through? How do they have somebody to facilitate them through that?
Yes.
That denial and all of that?
There's a 12-step program that's a sister program of Alcoholics Anonymous called Al-Anon. Mm-hmm. Al-Anon is for family and friends of alcoholics. And they have meetings just like AA. Usually there's an Al-Anon meeting while there's in the other room, there's an AA meeting going on. And you can reach out to your local AA central office or whatever, and they will give you information on Al-Anon, or maybe there's Al-Anon available and you can get online and look for it. And they have their own central office, their own literature. They have a book that they study. They work the steps just like Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's a wonderful program. Lois started that, Bill's wife. Yeah. Bill Wilson, who was a co-founder, his wife Lois started the program of Al-Anon, and it's big. Yeah, there's a lot of members and a lot of people that are going through this. So you're not alone. You can reach out, find somebody to talk to, and get some help. And they've got, like I said, lots of literature, a lot of support groups. They meet on a daily to weekly basis, depending on where you're at in the country. But and I like to tell people, a lot of people that go into this the first few times that, well, I don't belong there. I don't fit there. I don't, my kid doesn't do this or my husband doesn't do that. And I always encourage people, go to at least 12 meetings before you decide whether this is for you or not. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened for me. I went to the first few meetings and I sat there and thought, oh, wow, these people are, I
They're
don't.
bad off, right?
Yeah, they're terrible. And then what I don't know how many meetings I went to. It was a big group in Salt Lake City, and it was a noon meeting, and there was probably, I'm not kidding, there was 60, 70 people in this meeting.
Wow.
And they had a lot of time, a lot of recovery. And I listened to those people, and they sounded like they were talking a different language. I did not understand anything they were saying.
Mm.
And the meeting was almost over one day, and I stood up and I just said, you guys, I know I belong here because I grew up in an alcoholic home, and I got a lot of stuff that I need to work through. But I don't understand anything you guys are saying. I am so lost when I come in here. I go to AA groups and I get it, 100%. But when I go into these family groups, I just don't. Al-Anon just did not make any sense to me whatsoever. And I'll never forget their reaction. They all started laughing. And, I'm dead serious. And this isn't funny, and they're all laughing. And they said, Brent, just keep coming back. Just
It's okay.
keep showing up. And I said, all right, I'll show up. And I'm not kidding you. The next day I walked in there, or the next week I walked in there, and oh my gosh, everything clicked. It just all fell into place. And I went to Al-Anon meetings for about 12 years, real consistent. So I've got quite a bit of history with the codependency and Al-Anon. I started a ACA meeting in Bountiful, adult children of alcoholics.
Okay.
Boy, really intense meetings. Talk about your childhood and the place you grew up, and all these things you learn when you're a child to survive. And then you try to take those tools into your adulthood, and they just don't work anymore.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of demons out there that come from the wreckage of your past. Growing up in that violent home. And I mean, I'll give you a little example. When I walk into a room, and I'm like this to this day, and I used to really think this was a cool thing, that I had this gift, right? I walk into this room and I sit down, and instantly I know how almost everybody in that room is feeling. I know if there's one person in that room angry, I know it. I feel like I know it before they know it. It's like if somebody starts to get rowdy or upset, like I am so over it. I mean, I'm on top of it. I don't know how many times when I'd go into a bar and I'd be sitting in a bar and there'd be somebody clear across the other end of the bar, or, on the other side of the bar, that would get angry or violent or whatever. Man, I was over there and in their face that fast. I could pick that stuff up so quick. And there's some stories I could tell you about being in some places I shouldn't have been, and all heck broke loose. And because of that ability to kind of be one step ahead of that, I saved a buddy's life one night where a guy was going to stab him. And I just had this. And when I went to Al-Anon, I went to ACA, and I started digging into where this so-called trait came from. I realized that it wasn't an asset. This was a survival skill that I learned when I was a little kid. Man, this is something that I had to. When my dad walked through the door, when he came home at night, I had to read him. I had to know if he was mad, angry, happy, sad. I knew I had to know how to survive. Whether I went out, he came in one door, and sometimes I'd go right out the other door. I would just avoid him like the plague. And then if I read he was in a good mood, I feel safe and I could hang out. And that's how it was every time he walked in the door, was just this unbelievable fear. And it was like this, I had to read him so fast. And I'm like that with most people. And I think that's why I turned into salesperson, is because I have to read people really, really quick. And I think some of it's really good. when I talk to alcoholics and families of alcoholics, I have to be able to read the situation. I've done a lot of interventions, and when you do an intervention, you really, really have to be on your toes to know how things are going. You can watch the person that's going through the intervention with their family, because I bring their whole family in, and we all kind of share how we feel and what's going on. And I line everything up to where, what person shares first and what they talked about, what they don't talk about, and go through all that. And then we, work into getting them some help. But, I think it's vitally, I can see as soon as some family members start to talk, you look at the alcoholic and I can see this wall go up instantly. And so I read people pretty good in that sense. And I figured out that talent came from, growing up in that alcoholic home. And I think that's just one example.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, if you're trying to survive as a kid and you don't want to get beat on, imagine you get that skill pretty quick.
Yeah.
Pretty quick. So in interventions, how do you know as a family, like when to do an intervention and what does that look like? It looks like the 16-year-old situation that you just described wasn't necessarily an intervention, but so how do you know when to pull that lever or not?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, because I think this is something that we can help a lot of people with. I don't like doing interventions.
Mhm.
I don't like seeing families go down that path.
Mhm.
I don't like force feeding anybody, because basically that's what I do. I cram recovery down their throat.
Mhm.
When I do an intervention, it's not. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Intervention on TV.
I don't know.
It's well, that's kind of it's very similar to what I do, but when there's a lot of preparation. When I go into a situation where there is no other answer, family can't. This guy, this guy is living in the basement. He's 40 years old. He drinks every day. Doesn't work anymore. He doesn't move. The family has no idea what to do with him. They can't kick him out. They love him too much to throw his butt out the door, but they can't put up with this anymore. They call me up. They want me to come and help them. I look at every option available to prevent doing an intervention. And this is actually a case that I had.
Mhm.
A guy was living in the basement. You'd have to walk through bottles to get to him, in his bed. He did nothing. And we set up an intervention. But what I do is I interview everybody he knows, everybody he interacts with, all the family members I interview, all of his friends, which are usually a very short list. And then I talk to his employer, his boss, anybody that he works with, anybody that he has known for a long period of time. And I get all the information I got. This particular guy, we rented a room we actually rented a room at the rec center in Bountiful.
Okay.
And went in there and rented this room and brought the whole family in, went and brought this guy in the room. He looks around, it's like family reunion, all his friends, everybody's there, And I've already talked to all of them, and I've told them, okay, I want you to talk and you to talk. Anyway, long story. So the one thing I always tell the family is, if he says he's ready to go to treatment, that he's done, that he agrees with us, I pick him up right now. We go straight to the car, get in the car, take him right to treatment. There's no in-betweens. We go immediately.
Mhm.
We don't pack a bag. We go.
Mhm.
So it's like, okay. So this kid sits down, and he was a little, he was a little slow in his thinking and his actions and stuff. He was just super nice guy, but he wasn't quite there all the. I don't know how to explain it, but
Mhm.
anyway, super, super nice guy. And I sit him down and I says, yeah, do you want to go? And, I told him why we were there. And And he says, oh, yeah, yeah, let's go. And I said, okay, let's go. And I stood up and said, let's go. He goes, well, I don't want to go now. And so he sat back down. Long story short is I go around the room and I have all of his siblings and all of his family members tell him exactly how his actions are affecting them. You
Mhm.
know, come from a place of when you do this and you drink and you're in your basement, man, it hurts. We love and care about you. And it just, we hate to see you living this kind of life. We want to get you help so you don't have to live like this anymore.
Mhm.
Not people pointing fingers saying, you worthless piece of crap, blah, blah, blah. So, anyway, we get everybody to be on a very positive page.
Mhm.
And he just started putting these walls up and he wasn't going. He just, no, I can't go today. I'm not going. So I got to the end and I always like to play this little trick on him. I just said, okay, you're not going to go. So we have come up with a plan to help you be successful in your life. You're not liking that plan. So why don't you tell us what your plan is?
Mhm.
And oh my gosh, he looked at me and he took the question. I could tell he took the question very seriously. He didn't just come back with an answer. He sat there and he thought about it for a minute. And he looked me in the eye and he said, Brent, what I'd really like? And I says, what's that? He goes, I'd like a girlfriend.
Hmm.
And I says, okay, John or whatever his name was. I said, John, do you think your girlfriend, you're going to find this girl that's going to knock on your door and walk down and stumble through all your bottles and find you in bed drunk? You think that she thinks you're attractive? Is that a possibility? And it was like, no, of course not. And I said, okay. So we know that. We need to get you out of the basement to find a girlfriend. I said, and then what would you like? He goes, well, I'd really like to get married and have a family.
Mhm.
And I says, "Oh man, that is a fabulous goal. That is just amazing." And I
Mhm.
said, "I'm here to tell you that I can put you on the path today to achieve your goal. I can do that for you right now if
Mhm.
you're willing to go with us because your plan and what you're doing is not working. You are not going to get from A to B with the
Mhm.
way you're living your life today. You're not going to find a girlfriend. You're not going to get married.
Mhm.
You're going to stay in that basement until alcohol kills you."
Mhm.
I think it just clicked. And he says, "Yeah, you're right." He goes, "So you can find me a girlfriend." I was like, "No, I can't find you a girlfriend. I can make it so a girl out there will be attracted to you because now you're well.
Mhm.
You're not drinking. You're a useful member of society. You're doing all." So anyway, this guy gets up off the table. I take him to treatment. Oh, beautiful story. I mean, he goes into treatment. He's got this goal, and this kid had this goal in his mind.
Mhm.
I mean, 100% every day. He's there to find him a girl, and that was it. And he went to all the meetings. He got out of treatment. Was really really super successful. Stayed sober. I saw him at a lot of AA meetings afterwards, and I'll never forget it. This Sunday afternoon, I go over to the grocery store, walk into Walmart, and I'm parked my car and I'm walking across the parking lot, and I look and the door's open, and here comes John with a girl
Mhm.
walking out of Walmart, and
Mhm.
I just started. She was a nice looking lady, looked like they'd been to church. They were dressed up and stuff, and oh my gosh, I was grinning from ear to ear, and I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, buddy, how are you, man?" And he goes, "I am so happy you're here." He says, "I want you to meet Mary." And she goes, "We just got engaged." Oh my Lord. I
Wow.
was just like big tears running down my face. It's
Wow.
just, and I don't know what happened to them. I lost track of John and Mary, or I don't even know what their names were, but I get so much gratitude out of giving people opportunities. And I often say this, that each and every one of us, God doesn't love me more than he loves anybody else. And each and every one of us have the opportunity to get well. And the family, has an opportunity to change their lives and to start focusing on what makes them click. Not about, I think it's really hard for family members to get away from trying to fix the alcoholic. You cannot fix, I don't have the power to get anybody sober.
Mm-hmm.
And I've lived with this disease since day one. I don't have the answers. I absolutely, when a family calls me up and said, "What do I do with Johnny?" It's like, man, I wish I had this magic wand and I could just tap him on the head and he could get this thing. Unfortunately, Johnny has to find his own path. And so, I think when we give them opportunities, the family's dynamics have to change. Mom and dad have to quit enabling. The siblings have to quit enabling. Johnny has to, there's a saying that, don't save them, don't save anybody from their pain. For me personally, when I was out there and Elaine kicked me out the door, and I went out into the world thinking to myself that, all right, Elaine's not watching me anymore. I don't have to control my drinking. I can drink as much as I want every day. Nobody's looking over my shoulder. It's totally up to me. Well, what happened with me when I did that is I realized that nobody was, nobody any longer was looking at my alcoholism. When somebody else was looking at my alcoholism, for whatever reason, I didn't have to. But when everybody quit looking at my alcoholism, it was up to me to make a decision that it was out of control, that I didn't like living this way, that I wanted help. And so I was very, very fortunate to have people just say, enough is enough. Brent, you're not living in this house anymore until you go to Alcoholics Anonymous and work a 12-step program. You're not welcome here anymore. I'm going to go live my life, because everybody deserves to be happy, joyous, and free, And when a drunk like me is in your life, and I'm that tornado that I talked about, it's it's so difficult for them. I mean, I can't even imagine what Elaine went through. I can't even imagine trying to keep, because we lived from paycheck to paycheck. And here I am blowing all this money on alcohol and my partying and my running and gunning and doing all this stuff. And I didn't have any consideration for the bills, or, if I opened up, a bank account and I saw there was $400 there, I didn't realize that $400 was for rent. I just thought that $400 was mine for partying, And so, I just got to that place where everybody quit looking at me, and I was left to myself, and for whatever reason, something happened to me. So if somebody would have saved me from my pain, it may have killed me. And trust me when I tell you this, I've seen people die because they got loved to death. They got loved to death. They couldn't fill out an application, 35 years old, and mom and dad have always done for them, did everything for them, and they didn't know how to work. They were so handicapped because people in their life just loved them to death,
Yeah,
And
that's so hard. Because as a parent, you do want to help them avoid the pain.
Yes.
That's your instinct, I guess, right? That's the immediate sort of knee-jerk reaction. But like you said, that's probably what they need to feel first. To get to a place, like you said, of making a choice to go get better.
Yeah. And it's not easy for the family to back off.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the most difficult thing for the family is to start concentrating on themselves. And going to Al-Anon, open up your mind, and trying to figure out how to live a life without focusing on how to control everybody and everything, how to let go, let God, how to take a step back and just realize they are absolutely powerless. Step one says you are powerless. Step one is the same in Al-Anon. You are
Mm.
powerless over alcohol and your life has become unmanageable. And I've often said Al-Anons go through the same process when you deal with alcohol or you drink alcohol uh, to excess, that it treats both parties the same.
Mhm.
You know, your depression when you're living without alcoholics, the same as the guilt, the shame, they're hiding it from everybody and everything. They you no longer invite anybody over to the house. They're controlling everything that goes on. They don't want the world to see what their life has turned into, and it becomes such a routine and so embedded in everything they do that it's really hard to start letting go of all this. That's why they work the steps. That's why they face these demons. That's why they take responsibility, not for the alcoholic, but for the ones that are actually the codependents. And it's just a very, very, I think it's almost more difficult for a codependent to see their part in things or as it is for the alcoholic. The alcoholic, they drink alcohol. They have this substance. They put the codependent, they drink people. They drink control. They drink, you know, all of this stuff. When the alcoholic quits, he takes the bottle and he puts it aside, and no longer does he touch that substance. So it gives him an opportunity to get well. But somebody in Al-Anon or codependency, it's so easy to relapse all the time. Every single day, you slip back into this behavior. And it takes a long period of time to be able to, number one, you cannot change any behavior without recognizing it. And I think codependents have a really, really difficult time recognizing that behavior. And that's why it's so vitally important that you find somebody in the community, some community of your own, to call up and, hey, Mary, I'm stressed. He hasn't come home in 2 days. I've called every hospital and Mary's like, whoa, 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 settle down, take a breath. Have you eaten today? Have you prayed today? Have you taken care of you today? And, I think that it's so vitally important that we find that community and those people out there. And trust me when I tell you this, there's a lot of suffering people out there. And my heart absolutely goes out to these folks. And I'm here to tell you, I've worked with a lot of families. I've seen a lot of success. I've seen a lot of failure. I've seen a lot. But when everybody in the family buys into this thing and they throw themselves in 100%, I'll guarantee you. One thing it says in Alcoholics Anonymous: rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. And that goes for Al-Anon too. Rarely have I seen a person fail that has thoroughly followed this path. When they wrote that in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the first addition or addition to the big book said, never have we seen anybody fail that has thoroughly followed our path. And that's not exactly what it said, but it's never. They didn't see anybody fail. But, if you thoroughly follow this path, and there's so much help available out there, it's just for the family. I've always thought that it's very difficult to find. It's not easy to get tapped into this stuff. It's scary as heck. I mean, it's uncomfortable, but the disease of addiction is so powerful, that the things that we need to do to get well are not easy things. I wish I could tell you, just do A, B, and C and you'll be done. It's not like that. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to learn to face fears and things that you were never willing to do before. It's not easy. It's not a simple fix. There is no simple fix. But to get started down that path and to start understanding, addiction and start understanding codependency is the first steps. And so there's people like me that are passionate about helping families. I I beg you to just, if you're struggling, get out there and reach out, find somebody. It could be at your local church. It could be, it could be anywhere. It's just wherever you feel like you need to go. Al-Anon is a great resource. I think the internet uh, is a good resource. There's one thing that kind of bugs me today that that I want to touch a little bit on, and that's, if you go online and you start looking for help, you're going to find a lot of stuff there. You're going to find a tremendous amount of information. Uh, you know, Treatment and treatment centers are a profit. They're there to make money. And I'm not saying all of them are bad, but I'm not saying all of them are good either. And I think the one thing that I really didn't like about working in a treatment center was, it depends on what insurance you have, how long we're going to keep you. I hated hearing that. Diagnose me, the doctor, the psychiatrist, or whoever. If you think that I need 60 days inpatient, don't look at my insurance before you tell me that. Tell me this is what I recommend. I want honest answers. If you're out there on the internet, you're looking for something, I am super into 12-step based programs. I just think that, a lot of people say, well, I don't like Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, then, good luck. I don't know what to tell you. I just know for me, Alcoholics Anonymous, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. The success rate in Alcoholics Anonymous are extremely low because people give up. But people have come up with other ways of doing it. And I have not seen not one, that even comes close to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying that. I know there's a lot of people out there that's, oh, Brent, you're old fashioned. You're this, you're that. No, I have passion for helping people. If I had a family member come to me, where would I send them? I would send them to Al-Anon. I would say, go somewhere where there's a 12-step program and work that program, whether you're drinking or whether you're just a family member. And every treatment center, usually not every, but most of them have family programs when your loved one's going through treatment. Very, very, very good to get information. Good, just a really good session. Yeah, you might have to spend 3 or 4 days. The longer they have the family program, the better it is, because you want to get information. And you can reach out to some of the treatment center, ask around, find people that have gone through treatment. There's alcoholics in every neighborhood. There's alcohol. They say 10% of our population is addicted to something. It's not hard to find a recovering alcoholic. Find that, or find somebody and say, hey, find somebody that's tapped into recovery and ask them for recommendations, because there's good treatment centers. And I'm going to invite some of our guests that I know that own treatment centers and very involved, interventionists and people that have inpatient programs and, outpatient programs, and then aftercare and sober living. They rent out space for people to go after they get out of treatment to live in a sober environment, which is a good idea. But just like anything that you're going to buy out there and you get on the internet, whether it's a, air conditioner or a furnace or whatever, you kind of got to go, you got to weed through it. There's people out there that will just want to make money. And I'm not one of those people. I want to help people. And there's a lot of people just like me out there that are good, honest people in the program that want to be able to help people get well. So there are resources out there. Just be careful. There, a lot of these places, they just want to tap into your insurance company, and they put as many people through the program as they possibly can, and in one door and out the other, and the success rate's horrible. And you can do some online, you can do all kinds of research and find the path. But again, Jonathan and I have a website, and we can tap into that if you have any questions or anything like that, or you want to even maybe send me an email, and we can have a discussion, and I can help you to find the help for the family and also the alcoholic. So
Yeah.
I'm very,
Yeah,
very
exactly.
passionate about this.
Yeah, definitely. So the website is pusheachothertothetop.com. And there's also a link in our show description that you can actually text us directly to. So if you have those questions, your family member, your person who's struggling with addiction, yeah, please reach out. We'd love to get you in contact with Brent and see if we can make some help there, offer some help there. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. That's really good. Well,
Well,
that's a big one.
yeah, that is a big one. And we've talked together about bringing some of my family and our family together and having some discussions because families heal. That's the beauty, and I'd like to show that families get together after we go through all these battles, and how the family all works together and works on themselves to get to the place where we have a pretty sane family. I mean, some of us are, pretty together.
Some more than others.
There's a couple that are a little suspect, but
Yeah,
I'd like to get some of the family members or some of my kids together and do an episode where we can talk about how successful it's been, throughout the years to be able to accomplish the things that we've been able to accomplish as a family. And that's the beauty of this thing, man. There's another side to all of this craziness. There's a whole part of this where you can enjoy life and you can enjoy family again, and you can you can participate in watching your grandkids grow up and see your kids and spend time with them. And it's such a gift that I'm so grateful that I did the work that I needed to do to have that family back. And because they wouldn't be here today, none of us would, if I would have kept on that path, for sure.
for
It
sure.
wouldn't
Yeah,
be
that's
here.
awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to do that episode and the other ones too, getting your friends and your acquaintances that from treatment centers, be able to talk through some of the more details and maybe share some of those stories of success as well and see how those families were able to heal and
Yeah, yeah,
get to the other side like you're talking about. So, well,
yeah.
that's
I've talked
awesome.
about me enough.
No, no, that's good. I think it's great to have your perspective on it and then others, as well, so they could really share hope for families and individuals that are struggling, that there's a path to some happiness, just like you ran to John and Mary.
Right.
You can reach those goals, and
Oh yeah.
that's
Oh
really cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was an amazing day, man. After hearing, what he wanted out of life, and to watch that happen for him. I mean, he just put in the work. That's what it takes. You just put in the work. When he said that out loud, I thought, oh man, careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Well, that's so
No.
cool. You offered him hope on that first night, that intervention, and painted that picture, and he was able to imagine and you gave him that desire, and I guess maybe not desire, but you gave him that encouragement that that's a possibility for his life. Like, let's do it,
Yes.
and let's start right now. That's awesome. I love it.
Everything we want out of life is available if we're willing to work for them.
Hmm.
If we just work really hard on ourselves and we put in the time and the effort, then, we can do it. We can
That's
do it.
awesome.
It doesn't matter. There's nothing that can hold us back. We can succeed.
I love
Push
it.
each other to the top, man.
That still works. That's
Yep.
still good. Well, awesome. I think that's maybe a good stopping point right there. again, thanks for your time and thanks for your stories. I think it's really helpful to get a little peek into what the families have to deal with and the resources and the support that they can have. And so, yeah, I guess we'll see you on the next episode. Look
All
forward to
right.
getting the family together, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Push Each Other to the Top. Brent's story is a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there's still a path forward and someone willing to walk it with us. If this episode meant something to you, share it. And if you're struggling right now, please know you're not alone. Follow the show wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss the next story. And if you can, leave a quick review. It helps more people find these conversations. New episodes drop soon. We hope you'll come back. Continue listening for behind the scenes moment after we ended the episode.
All right, cool. There you go.
All right. Well, that was a little different, wasn't it?
No, that was good. I loved it.
Think so? Think you came across all right?
Yeah, because I think that's, I think that's part of, that's part of the reality, like you said, right? Every alcoholic has 5, 6 more
Yeah.
people around them that need that healing as well. So yeah, that's a big part of all of this.
I think that's really, really good that we might be able to help people with that.